All right. Well, thank you and welcome back to Psych Your Way to Success. Your host, Claire Bike, with, as always.
Heather Fife.
And today we're really excited to have Jeff joining us today, Dr. Jeff Keuss.
Yep.
And yes, nailed it. All right, good.
Stuck that landing, Claire.
I know, I've really tried. I think you guys will be pretty interested. We have the topic that Jeff did decide today, which is being able to talk about the on-ramps, off-ramps of our youth today and their place in the community. We're going to have him kind of expand on that, what that means and his role in that. But just to give you a quick background of Jeff today, and I had to look him up. I did some research because it's quite the extensive list. So bear with me for just a moment. I'm presently executive director and principal investigator at Pivot Northwest Research, as well as a professor at Seattle Pacific University. You received your PhD from Glasgow University and also attended Oxford. Also was on faculty at Glasgow University. And then obviously, how could you not also be a coach in CrossFit, raising 3 very strong independent daughters with a much longer resource of places that he's been as well as things that he's done. So couple things. He has been published and has a new publication out. I'm going to let him talk into that. But again, thank you for being here and welcome, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, thanks for asking me. Great to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. And again, he's not just somebody with their PhD and is a doctor, but he decided to go back to school now again and attend Harvard University to get his IO Psych degree, master's degree as well.
Yeah.
So
it was only because I just wanted to hang out with Claire and Heather at Harvard. So just build Crimson. So that you were the draw.
There it is. Yeah, no, never. But yes. Okay. So if you don't mind, could you just give us a little background of who you are, what you do, aside from the list?
Yeah, thanks. One person asked me a little bit about some of my research and work interests in the past. And I said, I'm a little bit like academic bamboo. I keep showing up in people's yards. I don't mean to transgress borderlines, but I do it anyway. I publish in a lot of different areas. I've done a lot of research over the years. I've taught an English literature faculty. I was a Victorianist, which means I spent a lot of time with 19th century literature in my early career. I wrote on George Eliot and Thomas Hardy for a time, so I have that background. Moved into ethics as an ethicist for a period of time, worked in healthcare. Also worked, I was a district executive of the Boy Scouts of America, Sister Province Healthcare Network. So I've done a lot of nonprofit management work in my past. But right now, the work I'm doing is really working with social scientists. I have a Lilly Endowment grant. It's almost a $3 million grant that's researching kind of how young adults, 22 to 29-year-olds, are engaging with communities of meaning. And so I have a staff of PhD students who work with me from IO Psychology, as well as a number of other field workers as well, doing quantitative research collection, and basically building out design thinking models, change management models, transition models that we can use primarily in nonprofits, religious organizations, so churches, mosques, synagogues, faith communities is kind of our main focus. But we've started to get into working with NGOs and nonprofits as well, doing some of that work. So as Heather mentioned, as Claire mentioned, we are publishing the first 5 years of our findings in a book that's coming out this spring called Defiant Hope and Active Love, What Young Adults Are Seeking in Places of Work, Faith, and Their Communities. So watch this space. It's coming out very soon. So we're very excited about our data and kind of getting that out there. It's a very whimsical book, so it's very easy to read. You don't have to be a data scientist to get into it. There's lots of
my next question.
Lots of easy charts to read and things like that. But I think there's some exciting stuff in it. So,
well, wow, that's quite a bit. And thank you for being here. It's
great.
It's a lot that you have obviously done. So we really appreciate your expertise in this area. Teach us a little bit more. When you brought up this topic, I know I had to do my research on it, Heather. I don't know about you. So a lot of it from my initial research, and I'm excited for you to expand on this, is a lot to do with DEI, a lot to do with like something I wish my son had had getting out of high school and getting into the real world, which was that transition point for a lot of youth are in now like present times trying to decide how they fit into this world, I think,
Yeah.
more or less. So if you wouldn't mind, yeah, just take it
Yeah,
away
I mean,
a
one of
little
the
bit.
biggest questions for any of us is how do we know when we become an adult?
Yeah.
What's that? What I mean, and I
You
know,
still?
and now believe me, I bring this up in many communities, and sociologically, there used to be some very traditional markers of adulthood. They
Hmm.
would be things like a career, moving out of your parents' home, marriage, or some kind of long-standing relationship,
Getting to vote.
having children, or somehow participating in a community that you are for a period of time.
Mhm.
But since the 1950s, a lot of these markers, these rituals of transition have gone away. And so sociologist Jeffrey Arnett, for example, talks about emerging adulthood. So the goalposts are moving, using a Super Bowl, we're coming up with the Super Bowl, right? So the goalposts are moving further and further away. And more people are waiting longer to acknowledge they're coming into adulthood. So as opposed to people 17, 18, 19 a few decades ago would be
Hmm.
considered adults. They would be fully on their own. They'd be doing, going off to war. They'd be going off to work. They'd be doing some of these things. Now, with Arnett's work and a lot of other sociologists, emerging adulthood means that a lot of those markers are now moved away. People are not in careers for very long periods of time. They do gig economy work. They do 5 or 6 different types of jobs. They have multiple different, businesses and work that they do throughout their life. They're changing career trajectories over and over again. They have multiple partners. So they don't necessarily have one life partner that they're going to have over a period of time. They have multiple ones. Right now, particularly as you look at kind of Gen Z and millennials, children are not really in the picture that much anymore. I mean, natality is falling off dramatically in the United States, except for in some particularly ethnic and immigrant communities coming in are raising that, and in religious communities are raising the number of children we have. But outside of that, natality is falling precipitously.
Right.
So people are not having children. They're not in jobs very long. They're not with life partners. So all these markers that people would usually say, yeah, I guess I'm an adult, they don't have them anymore. So therefore you don't have to say that anymore.
Right.
So you can be 55 and transient, right? You can be,
Hmm.
kind of doing different things. And what that means though, is then the areas of responsibility, accountability, making some decisions for longevity get put off. And that changes the way that now young adults, and here I use 22 to 29-year-old because that's the target demographic that we're working with. That demographic is learning from the generation before it, their parents, their grandparents, uncles, aunts, people in their workplace, saying, well, I don't have to commit very long to a place because they never did. I don't have to save for a house because they're not. And so I'm going to kind of bounce around, travel a lot, not build equity. I mean, all these things are kind of part and parcel to the young adult experience today.
Yep.
So what we've done in our research project is try to get at kind of what are people looking for. And this is the terms that we're using as on ramps and off ramps. So what's a good way to an on ramp, meaning how does a young adult, 22, 29-year-old, come work for your company? What are they looking for? What do they want to know when they come in? And it's beyond the paycheck and the benefits package in the 401k. It's really a lot of these soft skills, these kind of intangible, we say ineffable kind of things that you can feel your way into in a community that are never on the website. They're never in the job description, but we all know what that is, right? There's a certain feel of the place. I
Yep.
mean, 20 years ago, it was like, do you have a climbing wall in your workspace, right? Does it feel like a college dorm when you go to work,
Right. Do
right?
you
I
have
mean,
bean bags?
yeah, that was the Microsoft reality of the late 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah.
Is like we literally call them campuses, right? We know they're
Yeah.
no longer workplaces, right? So they became college campuses. So Google, Adobe, Microsoft, all the tech firms brought in people and wanted them to continue to feel like they're working like Zuckerberg out of their dorm room.
Hmm.
But that's not necessarily as appealing anymore. Those are still fun. I mean, it's fun to have snacks. It's fun to zip around on your scooters, but there's more they're looking for in their workplace. And so we were trying to think through what that was. And so if you want to, I can talk a little bit about what some of those on ramps are. But there's also off ramps. I mean, what pushes people out the door? What are the ways that signal to a young adult that they don't belong? They're not going to be part of this. And what do we expect in that? So.
No,
Um,
this is absolutely brilliant. So these on ramps and off ramps, I think for a lot of our listeners, and Heather, please chime in whenever you're ready, cut me off. These on-ramp options, if I'm a business, which I mean I
Mhm.
am, but I'm not hiring. But if I'm a business that is hiring and I'm looking at people, I obviously am seeing the socioeconomic outcomes of people not having longevity in workplace, like
Yep.
whether it's our stocks, our financials, even residency and homes and everything that are no longer being sold but
Mhm.
rented, and owned by larger organizations. The on ramps for any organization, like what are the key components that you would say, maybe top three things that you would really gear people toward?
Yeah. Well, the elephant in the room that we're all talking about and also not talking about at the same time is COVID.
Yeah.
And so, how has the world, as we've gone through COVID, now come out of it? And there's a lot of research being done. People are trying to catch a breath and figure out, okay, what did we learn? What did we not learn? Well, a couple of trends I think that are important, and you can bring this up. The 2023 Surgeon General report, for those of you who may have seen it when it came out, it's called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation, which came out in 2023. Massive data set that the U.S. Surgeon General's Advisory Committee on Health Effects of Social Connection and Community. It's a massive, thick document. But
Hmm.
in that document, there were a couple of things about national trends and social connection that get into these on-ramp questions. So can I just do some data dumping real quick? Is that
Sure,
okay?
I love it.
All right. So, and this is what's important to note is that the people will point to the pandemic as this great, hinge point on how we connect and don't connect and how businesses do their work. But what the Surgeon General found is you go back to 2003, that all of these trends we're talking about were already happening. And what COVID did was put things on rocket fuel. So for
Sure.
example, since 2003, social isolation has increased by 24 hours per month, meaning that people feel more socially isolated by 24 hours of their month than they had been in 2003. Just shooting up of people feeling isolated. Household family social engagement has decreased 5 hours per month since
Mhm.
2003, and it continues to go down. Right? Companionship, the ways that I feel connected to other human beings, has decreased 14 hours per month. Social engagement with friends, a decrease of 20 hours per month. It's literally like a slide going straight down of the amount of time that I actually spend with other people, just to spend time with people, right? Not networking, not to move my career. I'm talking about having fun with somebody.
Right.
It's plummeting, right? Non-household family social engagement, a decrease of 6.5 hours per month, and social engagement with other friends, a decrease of 10 hours per month. So since 2003 to now, here we are in 2024, all of the indicators are going down. So time spent alone is shooting through the roof. The amount of time spent with other people is decreasing, right? So, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. It doesn't take somebody doing, intermediate statistics at Harvard, to figure out that these trend lines are a problem. And
Mhm.
so out of this comes 20-year-olds who have lived through their most important developmental periods of time. They went through high school on Zoom. They sat on their beds with their laptops. They're now getting into college, trying to figure out the social connectivity skills of socialization. And they're shooting at the other side, and people are asking them to go to work. Now, and here's the thing, is that a lot of businesses are trumpeting work from home, infinite personal time off, right?
Yep.
All these things are trying to woo them. But one of the key on-ramps that young adults, 22 and 29, are looking for is they want to spend time with each other. So they want to actually spend time together, right? And so, but it doesn't necessarily mean getting back into the office, which I know
Sure.
is a big issue. And
Huge.
Adam Grant, Kate
Mhm.
Milkman, all the behavioral social influencers who are out there are going to point to different points on this. But the bottom line is people want a workplace where they enjoy being together, and they
Mhm.
prioritize some kinds of group activities, team building, at least incidentally, sometime during a month. If you're trying to sell me by saying I'm going to give you more time by yourself and you get to be by yourself and do work, what you're going to have is an employee who is not attached to your company.
Right.
They're there for the paycheck.
Interesting.
They're there to do the work because the perception is you don't want them. You
Mhm.
want a cog in a wheel. So that's one on ramp, is they want some kind of connective companionship. Second, they want to make sure that their job description includes some aspect of mission and vision for the organization, meaning how do they contribute to the overall mission and vision of an organization. So if they're way down the org chart and they see in their job description, right? This is an IO Psychology 101, right? It's
Yep.
start with the job description, right?
Always. Yeah.
Yeah. And if the job description does not include a way that I can make a connection between my job and the overall mission of the organization, why it's helping the world, why it needs to exist beyond a profit margin, then why am I doing it? Right?
Yep.
Because social activism, connection, wanting to make a difference, and seeing that I am somehow making a difference in my job is a huge benefit for people. So connectivity, connected to the mission. And third, major on-ramp is that I have opportunities to advance in the organization. And you show me a way that in the next year, 3 years, 5 years on how I can do that. Right. So we've seen a lot of transitions from leadership development talk, how do I develop as a leader, to leadership identification language. So young adults want to know, because they're already leaders.
Yeah.
Right. They have survived the pandemic. They have moved forward things. They are college graduates. Right. They want organizations to say, you know what, you are a leader now. And we're going to keep moving you, as opposed to wait your turn till the 78-year-olds retire and maybe someday you'll get a chance. Right. Yep. That Mad Men era of the 50s, which again was very cool aesthetics. Don't get me wrong.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. But that idea of young adults having to wait their turn for the next 30 years, it's like, I'm going to go start my own company. Why would I work with you? Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. So those are three things. Heather, go ahead.
I do have a question on when you were talking about spending time together.
Yeah.
That's always an interesting thought, because are you thinking that it's during the workday that you're creating opportunities for people to spend time together, or is that after work, or how do you see that when you put it into a company?
Yeah, it's two levels. One is, how do you create collaborative opportunities for me to do my work with other people, right? So again, in college, think about the times that you brought your laptop and your books and you sat down in the library and you were all kind of working, and you maybe 13% of your time you actually got work done, but the rest of it you were just kind of, getting to know each other and things like that. They want more opportunities where they get permission to do that work, right? That I can bring my laptop, my spreadsheet, sit down with you, work together, make some kind of social connections, bounce off ideas about politics, ideas about money, about why dating apps are so last year. I want to have those kind of conversations with people in my workplace, because it gives me a sense of humanity in my work.
That's interesting. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, because one of the things that people want to do is when I walk into it, and this gets into the DEI questions, is that I want to walk into a space of work where people acknowledge my full self, right? That there's more to me than merely my capacity to do the job. I want people to understand the burdens of what my life actually is. And this is one of the things that has been really interesting. And Heather, I don't want to take too far off the field of what your question is, but one of the studies that was done on relationships of young adults to workplaces, they were looking for 4 basic indicators. This was in the sociology of religion, so it was looking mainly at religious communities, but it also transitions into workplaces. Young adults are looking for intimacy, consistency, places to share anxiety, and also places that allow me to share anger and frustration with the way the work is going. And that fourth one, anger, is one of the areas that young adults keep saying over and over again, where people aren't giving me space to be frustrated by the corporation. Where's my way I get to share my frustrations with my manager, with my coworkers, where I can have a healthy dialogue about difference. So having intimacy applies where I can actually talk to people about real things. Consistency, that the job description I'm getting is not going to be flexing and flowing and changing on me all over the place. That there's a level, if I'm hired for something, that's all I'm being asked to do. Don't kind of pile different things on me unless I'm going to be compensated for it. The anxiety, this is the mental health crisis issue, where young adults want freedom to be able to talk about their mental health questions and have a place where I can be neurodivergent, where I can have, questions of fear, those kind of questions. And then anger. I mean, those are really fascinating. So that's part, Heather, about kind of why they want spaces to meet and discuss. The social aspect side of it, outside of it, is really interesting, because usually that's the place where people say, let's go get a beer after work, or let's go do this after work, or let's go do that. A lot of young adults today already have those friends. So that adds a whole nother level of like, now I have to stress about if I don't go this thing with my work people, then I'm not going to be able to spend time with this other community that actually means a lot to me. My Zumba classes, my CrossFit classes, my yoga class, my Mountaineers group. I have those groups already built in, but I do want something with my work group. I don't want to have to replace it. So
That's crazy. And I think it's so funny that you say they already have that friend group, because I am seeing a lot of people not engaging in the younger generations in those after work activities. And it's interesting that you're bringing that up. That's great. I appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I see it more that like people want to hang out with their coworkers.
they do.
That ends
Mhm.
up being who their group is,
Yeah.
honestly. That
And you will have some of that, of course, particularly when you're talking to younger adults, when they're just coming out of college, right? So you have like this is what I'm talking about, the 22 to 25-year-olds, where they move to a new city, they take a new career, and then your workplace is going to be everything, right? So these are the people I go get a beer with. These are the people I go hiking with. And so there's always this kind of social, and those are always great. But
Mhm.
what we've seen over and over again is as young adults become established in a particular area, they're going to develop other groups. And this gets into the religious life. This gets into social activism. This gets into other areas of the fullness of my personality that I don't get to express at work. And when those things start compiling up, then where does my time go? And so that's where the tension between, kind of these social aspects of work, it gets a little bit of a tension point.
I'm Thank you all for listening to part 1 of a 2-part in this series with Dr. Jeff Keuss. We will continue next week with part 2, talking more about off ramps. We look forward to any conversations that you would like to have around this. Please do reach out to Jeff. In the meantime, we have his LinkedIn attached to any of our socials, and continue listening on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple, as well as YouTube. Have a great day.